Right then, welcome back again. So today we've had another delivery. This time it's Blue Box. It's Brooks box. Let's see what we have. And there we have it. It is the Brooks Hyperion Tempo. So this will be my first time running in Brooks, so I'm quite excited to try them out and see how they feel. First impressions are the shoe is light, it's quite flexible, it's not a plated shoe. So as always then, I'm really just going to focus on how these look and feel. I'm not going to go into all of the technical specifications or the makeup or materials that have been used in the construction. All that I'm personally interested in is how they feel, how they look, first impressions, first try on, and how they feel during that first run. Now the pricing of this shoe is around about £140, which puts it in a similar bracket to the Nike Pegasus Turbo 2 or the Saucony Endorphin Speed. So it's a mid-tier shoe. The material of the upper is, it feels fairly soft and comfortable. They call it a stretch woven upper. I don't know if you can see just at the front of the toe box there are some holes in which will enable a bit of breathability. The tongue is not attached inside, so I wonder whether that'll sort of slip side to side when you put the shoe on. The eyelets are traditionally lined up. You've got a double eyelet at the top there for something like the runner's knot. Obviously I'm using these with the lock laces and so I won't need to apply that, but yeah, they're there if you need them. It doesn't have a massive amount of cushioning around the back of the heel, but it does feel as though it will be comfortable. I actually quite like the colourway on this, the dark colours, which is ideal against the current weather. I don't know if you can see or hear right now, but it is absolutely bucketing down with rain outside. I was due to run in some white shoes this morning and I very quickly switched them out for a dark pair of shoes because white shoes will not last more than 5 seconds in the current weather. And the shoe, the look of it is just fairly minimalist. There's nothing that majorly stands out other than perhaps the midsole. And just giving the midsole a bit of a squeeze, it feels quite sturdy. And so I'll be interested to see just how much cushioning there is. And the midsole they call the DNA Flash, and what they say is that this is lightweight, it's responsive and it's fairly cushioned. So we'll see just how much energy return and pop that gives during the run. Just giving it a little bit of a flex there, you actually can feel a little bit of pop. So hopefully during the transition from the strike zone through to the toe off, will give you a little bit of propulsion forward. If you look at the bottoms there, you've got a rubber outsole covering a fair proportion of the midsole. The only exposed bit really is just this middle section here. Now I tend to land around about the mid to forefoot, and so there's plenty of outsole there covering that. And actually looking side on, there's a fair amount of outsole there as well, and so hopefully they won't wear down all that quick. The intention for me is really to use this for some of the faster training runs, so perhaps some longer distance tempo runs, some interval training, that kind of thing. So what I'm going to do now then is to just slip them on and see how they feel. Now the shoe slipped on without any problem whatsoever there. I'm using the lock laces which are elastic, and so I was able to just pull the tongue, slide my foot in and then use the toggle system to tighten them a little bit. The one thing that I did notice, just going back to the point about the tongue not being attached inside the shoe, I did have to sort of poke my finger in under the tongue and slip out because it had folded over onto the top of my foot and so would have become uncomfortable over the run. So first impressions of walking around, they feel quite comfortable. So the upper is really hugging the foot. It's really comfortable. I can feel that there's a little bit of give in there, so it's quite a comfortable feeling. The midsole itself, it doesn't feel all that cushioned, but it feels soft enough. So I think it should remain comfortable over those perhaps the middle distance runs, a little bit of speed training, that kind of thing. It feels like there's a decent amount of space around the foot as well. And you've got a fairly nice locked in feel, and around the heel as well, where there's not necessarily a heel counter, but there's a little bit of extra cushioning. That feels fairly secure. Now just coming in from above then, so I've got a little bit less than a thumbnail's width around the front there, which is ideal for me. I like to run with around about a thumbnail's width at the front, and that allows for a little bit of movement. My feet expand when I run, and so I need that little bit of extra space. I've got wide feet, but I don't see that there's any problems here. They feel fairly comfortable around the side. There's no overhang, so I'm not sort of stretching that upper material. There's plenty of room around the midfoot. In the archway here, it does sort of come in a little bit, but because of the softness of this upper, that doesn't feel restrictive in any way. So I'm using the lock laces, and so I haven't been able to apply a runner's knot. So I do have a little bit of slippage there, which I may need to just tighten that a little bit. I think overall then, my initial impressions are really positive. They feel nice and light, they're nice and comfortable. They've sort of got a similar kind of feel to the Saucony Endorphin Speed, which I absolutely loved. It's my favourite shoe at the moment. So I'm really excited to take these out for a spin tomorrow, hopefully, just to see how they feel during that first run. So I guess all that's left for me to do now then is to lay them out with my kit, stick them on in the morning and take them for a run. We will see you then. It is a beautiful early morning. Let's do this. Right then, that is kilometre 1 done. So my very first impressions then, the shoes are nice and light, they feel really comfortable. Really comfortable. So the upper just feels like it's flexing quite nicely with my feet. The midsole, it's not all that soft, but it's fairly responsive. You don't have that sort of the rocker motion or the propulsion from something like the Saucony Endorphin Speed, where you're being propelled a little bit by the nylon plate. So the security of the fit feels good, my feet feel held well in place, there's no slippage up and down of the ankle or anything like that. Taking on the turns nicely, so my feet feel nice and stable, no issues there. Give it a little test. So I'm coming in for 3 kilometers now, there we go, and yeah, just sitting at a nice steady pace of around about 5 minutes a kilometer. I'm having no issues with my feet moving around or anything like that. It's holding my foot in place nice and securely. And the landing, the strike zone, you can feel the landing. It's somewhere between hard and soft, somewhere in the middle. So you can really feel each step, which will be great for those sort of shorter, quicker distances, as well as perhaps tempo and intervals. Perhaps not as comfortable as some of the more cushioned shoes over long, steady distances. We've got a bit of a hill coming up. So give it a little push and see how it does on the uphill. So they dealt with that little uphill quite nicely. The light weight of the shoe meant that I didn't feel like I had to drag them up the hill. I didn't really feel them on my feet because of the weight. So that's pretty good. They responded quite nicely to that little bit of extra effort to get up the hill. So I'm coming up to the 4 kilometer mark now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick it up for a kilometer just to see how they do at around about that race pace. So I'll be picking up to, I don't know, maybe 3:40 minutes a kilometer, something like that, just to test how they transition from that easier pace to the faster pace, and then how they maintain that pace for perhaps a kilometer. Here we go, 1k coming up. Right, immediate impressions, picked up that pace nicely. There was no issues in that acceleration. The shoes responded quickly. I'm holding a pace of 3 minutes 30 a kilometer here, and they're responding nicely to each bit of effort. Now there's no plate in these shoes, and you can tell you're not getting that extra bit of energy return or propulsion that you might get from
the carbon plated shoe or the nylon plate at the Saucony Endorphin Speed. Let's check back in at the end of this interval. So then, thoughts on that first interval. Now the shoes, they picked up the pace really nicely. I transitioned from 5 minutes a kilometre roughly to 3:30 a kilometre without much effort. But what I found maybe 500 metres in is that I was having to work pretty hard to retain that effort over the second half of the interval. I can definitely tell they're not a plated shoe. What you're not getting is that energy store and return with each footstep like you get from perhaps a carbon fibre plate or a nylon plate. Having said that, they remain comfortable. It's just that I had to work a little bit harder for that second half. So what I'd say that means to me then is that I wouldn't use these as a race day shoe, because I think what I find is that I'd be having to work a little bit too hard to retain that race pace throughout the duration of a run. What I think is they'll do great for slightly faster pace sessions, mid-pace sessions, intervals, that sort of thing, since they retain that comfort. But what I did just struggle with a little bit was retaining that speed. And that's not necessarily a problem with the shoe. To be honest, I'm probably a little bit spoiled, since usually my interval training is performed in a plated shoe where you get all of that energy return and you're getting that little bit of extra assistance throughout the interval. So I've got about 4.5–5 kilometres left to go, so I'm perhaps going to give it a couple more little efforts, but other than that I'm just going to sit back, enjoy the run, and really just try and focus on how the shoe feels and report back at the end. I'm just coming in then to the final few meters, and that is it. So 12 kilometers then in a time of exactly 55 minutes. So what we've done is a little bit of a warm-up, a little bit of effort, 3 in total kilometer efforts, just to test how the shoe feels at those different speeds, at the easy pace and picking up towards race pace. And what I found was, in summary, really comfortable shoe, nice and lightweight, and I'm not getting that sort of new shoe feel where they feel like they need to be broken in for 40–50 kilometers. They actually feel really comfortable straight out of the box. And again, nice and comfortable at that easy pace. You're getting a little bit of energy return from that midsole, but not as much as you get from something like a carbon plated shoe. So what I found during the second half of the intervals was that I was having to work and labour a bit harder to maintain a faster pace, and towards the end of the interval I was getting tired legs. So I think I would not use these for a race day shoe personally. I prefer the carbon fibre plated shoes, but having said that, I found them really comfortable. The security of the fit and everything will make it ideal for sort of longer steady runs, as well as some intervals as well, but perhaps not the full kilometre interval training that I do. I'll keep perhaps a Saucony Endorphin Speed for that, which gives you a little bit of that extra propulsion, a little bit of extra energy return throughout the duration of the intervals. Some final summary then, I think they are a really great shoe. I'm really happy to have them in my rotation, and they compete with something like the Nike Pegasus Turbo 2. These are comfortable straight out of the box, whereas I found the Pegasus Turbo 2 needed a bit of breaking in. So thank you for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, all of that sort of good stuff. Hit the notification bell wherever that may be on the screen. Make sure you get notified of future videos, and I will see you on the next video. Yo!